This is just a basic overview of the economy Excel spreadsheet. The spreadsheet basically operates in two different modes. There's the automated calculation mode, where the user only has to specify what the total number of gems and elements and coins are, and some other cursory stuff, and the back-end model will take care of the rest. So you'll see that none of these are selectable, and these values are just kind of populated based on these totals up here. The other option is for the user to just kind of go into sandbox mode and play with all these values, and changing the initial min tin chest gems to, let's say, like 15, and maybe changing the silver chest gems to 50, maybe changing the max tin chest to 100. You can see just kind of it shows up on this dashboard nice and clean. So those are kind of like the two basic modes. They're controlled through these. It's a protected sheet. So basically, if the kind of designer or like Excel designer wants to mess with this stuff, all you gotta do is just unprotect the sheet, and then you can select everything and make whatever changes you want. And if you want to add more things, you can lock cells by going to Format and putting it as locked or unlocked, depending on whether or not you want the cell to be selectable when you protect the sheet. You can also put a password to it, but I mean, it's not a huge deal, so I didn't do that. Okay, moving on. So the way that the basic design of the Excel sheet is just using conditional formatting based on this checkbox to just tell the user, or not confuse the user as to which values are being used and which aren't. And so the idea is that a developer can just use this one sheet, this one interface tab, and they don't have to go to anything else. The economist, or the person who's in control of the Excel model, is in control of the other tabs, and if they don't want to add any new features, then they don't have to change this interface at all. And if they just want to change the way that the existing features are calculated, they just go back to the other, or these other tabs here. So the main tab is the interaction values tab, which is basically just the link between the interface and the other tabs, so that if the user, or if the developer, or the Excel developer wants to change some calculations, they don't need to do much. They just need to change the formulas inside the cells, and then everything will just kind of follow through from there. And that's all kind of handled in this interaction values tab. You can see that it kind of takes as input these kind of blue cells, which basically just pull directly from whatever is being selected or inputted here, and they will export those values to the other tabs, and then the other tabs will kind of do their own calculations, and then send back the result of their calculations as interaction values, which then populates these charts and such. So that's the basic design. The hope is that someone can just pick this up, and all they have to do is just change the formulas if they want things calculated differently, and they don't have to worry too much about the user interface, or what the developers are looking at. So first we have the gems tab. It's pretty simple. It's just according to a formula based on the total number of gems, the total number of gems that the developer wants in the game. It just kind of splits them up according to some curve. The Excel developers that take this Excel sheet from here might want to change this if they want to use like a different type of curve, and this is where they would change those calculations. The store is pretty raw at this point, just because the store is kind of dependent on the relative strength of certain items. So we didn't really have that information, so we didn't do much with it. But the basic kind of skeleton is here, so that whoever picks this up can put in those costs, or design the costs around whatever the relative strength of each item is. The Gashapon is pretty self-explanatory. It just tries, just has these formulas to calculate what the minimum, maximum, and the multipliers are for the distributions of the gacha chests. It's based on the time it takes to open a chest, and also the total time expected for a player to devote to this game. There's a bit of a raw calculation of these like special tower pieces, but the concept needs to be fleshed out a little bit more before it gets finalized, but it's just kind of the raw skeleton is here as well. And it's got these little like 4 export areas, and we'll talk about that at the end. Finally, we have the cards. This is just basically, it takes as inputs, the same thing that the other ones are taking in, how many total elements there are in the game, how many total gems there are in the game, and tries to calculate the cost of each upgrade, so that it kind of can distribute each upgrade throughout the game. And it shows, for example, how many level 3 cards the player is expected to have at each level of the game. And so the user can kind of change what they want the kind of end game to look like. Do they want the user to have all of the do they want the user to have, or the player to have, all of the level 3 cards unlocked by the time they're finished with the game, or do they want the user to have 80% of the cards unlocked to level 3, and maybe they want to make it so that if you want everything unlocked by the end of the game, you have to pay something. So that's all kind of built into here, and can be kind of easily accessed through this interface in the cards area here. There might be a little bit of extra work to do on the cards, just because it's kind of pretty simple at this point. Maybe different cards will have different power levels, and the user might want to account for that, but currently that's not in here. Finally, there's some just kind of extra tabs of just fleshing out the design parameters of the game and kind of what our understanding was when we made it. There's sheet assignments, which is, I guess, kind of useless at this point. And there's a little tutorial for whoever picks this up. If they're a little bit new to Excel, there's a few little concepts that can help them to familiarize themselves with how Excel works. For example, using relative and absolute references, with the dollar signs. The VLOOKUP, probably one of the most useful tools in Excel. Just some stuff for how to do randomness and how to account for a dynamic number of levels. Oh, which reminds me, there are these 2 buttons here. So in the Spurpunk repository, there is another Excel sheet that this button is linked to, that will basically just calculate, or it'll go to that Excel sheet and it'll figure out how many levels are in the game. And the Excel sheet is designed to just automatically update with just all you have to do is press the button, and then it's done. The other button is this export all, and so once the developer feels like they're comfortable with the curves in the resource distributions, he can just export it all to to an XML, and that information for like what the variables are called, etc. That's located here. If you go to developer and then hit source, and then you can look at the XML source, and it'll tell you what the different what the different XML files that are outputted are called, and what each variable is called. So that's pretty much it. You can feel free to email me if you have any questions. wilsonjj@usc.edu. But hopefully this was a good enough explanation. But of course, if not, feel free to just send me an email. Yeah, I think that's it. Thanks. Bye.